This was one of the most anticipated hockey games in years, and it did not disappoint, my friend.
No, it was fantastic, and there's as you just mentioned a second ago, Heather, there's a lot of things that came together all at once. There was on the ice, and a lot of what we saw last night was fueled, as far as hockey goes and hockey interest, a lot was fueled by what happened last Saturday in Montreal with the 3 fights in 9 seconds and the emotionally charged game. USA wins on Canadian soil. But you're right, we haven't seen political undercurrents of a hockey game or a hockey tournament like this going back to 1972 in the Summit Series. Things, of course, different now than they were then, but nonetheless, too hard to ignore.
Well, because of the 72 parallel, we had Ken Dryden in on the show yesterday, Jeff, and he was saying, on paper, Connor McDavid looked like he'd be the stronger goalie. But anyone in the moment in net can have a big night and a big moment, and Jordan Binnington had one for the ages.
He really did, and the save in overtime against Austin Matthews is going to be if you're looking for one save that defined the goaltending for Team Canada in that game, it was the Austin Matthews save. I think everybody looked at that around the country and went, oh, this one's going in, and then Bennington gets his blocker on it. It was absolutely gorgeous. And the interesting thing about Bennington, too, is, leading up to that game last night, Heather, every single game he let in one clunker. Each game there was one goal where you went, Bennington has to have, the game against the U.S., it was Gensel. Before that, it was Adrian Kempe. It was every single game there was one goal where you said, he's got to have that one. It's almost as if Canada and Canadian hockey fans went into this one thinking, okay, we're playing down one puck because there's going to be one bad goal let in by Bennington. But he stood tall. No bad goals last night for him.
20 shots in a row at the end, and he stopped them all. It was incredible. Everyone, I think, was wagering on who would be the hero in overtime. Crosby called him a big game player. Number 97 got it in the end.
It's interesting. Crosby, of course, we think about Vancouver in 2010, the player originating in overtime in the corner. The pass out in front was, Ginla to Crosby. This time it's Mitch Marner to Connor McDavid. Maybe a symbolic passing of the torches. That put Connor Hellebuck in the Ryan Miller position for the ages. We'll see. This was an important tournament for Connor McDavid. I mean, the last sort of big stage moments we remember with Connor McDavid were in the Stanley Cup final and Game 7 against the Florida Panthers, and losing that Game 7, losing the Stanley Cup, not coming back onto the ice to accept the Conn Smythe Trophy. We've all seen the videos of how angry, how disappointed McDavid was, and it's almost as if he used that as rocket fuel for this tournament. Didn't have the best of all possible tournaments. McKinnon was excellent in this one for Canada, but when you talk about clutch players, you got to put Connor McDavid right up around the top for all those Canadians last night.
When you talk about that 2010 golden goal, of course, it was Crosby at that time. There were lots of questions about whether he'd be able to keep up this time round, and he answered those.
The oldest player in the tournament, Heather.
I know.
He's 37 years old, and he's still performing at an elite level, at a high level. Look, is he the same player that he was in 2010 when he was all, fresh-faced and full of optimism? No, he's been through, the battles through the NHL and international hockey as well. But say whatever you want. This what we're seeing is, someone who's, refusing to surrender, refusing to let age defeat him. And there he was again last night, one of the top players for the victorious team. And there's still no signs of aging on Sidney Crosby.
That's pretty impressive. I was thinking that if I played hockey, and I don't, but if I did, I think I'd like to play for John Cooper, because I was watching him interact with his players and how he congratulated Bennington and McDavid. He seems like a special coach. Was he the right man to be behind the bench, and what made him so?
Absolutely. You're 100% right about there are just some coaches that have a certain way about handling their bench and handling their players and understanding their players. There's the old saying, a pat on the back is 18 inches away from a kick in the butt. And Cooper knows when to put the foot on the gas and when to take the foot off the gas, and when someone needs encouragement and when someone needs a little kick in the butt to get things going. The fascinating thing about Cooper to me is, and I think a lot of people as well, he's one of the best coaches, full stop, in the NHL. Never won the Coach of the Year. He's won Stanley Cups, he's won this tournament, but he's never won the Coach of the Year in the NHL. Players coach very much. Players love him. He had a lot of Tampa Bay Lightning players on this team, as we saw last night. Clearly, he was the right. It's tough to criticize any decision right now, but he was clearly, the right coach for this time.
Okay. Let's talk about decisions. The decision to have this tournament. It exceeded people's expectations, it seemed, from the point of view of engagement and interest in all of this. But from the player standpoint, littered bodies all over the place, a lot of injuries. What will the NHL owners think of this, Jeff, and will there be a future for this tournament?
I don't know that there'll be a future for this tournament specifically. This one is, in replacing, for lack of a better, this is replacing the All-Star game this year, and this is a sort of chumming of the waters for the Olympics next year. Now, there will be, finally, a robust and consistent international schedule for the NHL. It'll be a combination of going to the Olympics and then their own production, which is the World Cup of Hockey. And in between those 4-year cycles, there'll be a couple of All-Star games. This is a one and done, unfortunately, folks. That trophy, which I believe was made in Belleville, Ontario, is going to go probably to the Hockey Hall of Fame Resource Center and collect dust. I don't think that we're going to see a Four Nations face-off tournament like this again. But nonetheless, even as a one and done, you're right. There were a lot of people that were skeptical about it. How hard would the players go? Would this just be another version of the All-Star game where it's no-touch hockey? These players need to be commended. They left everything out there on the ice. And as you mentioned, injuries, players dented. I mean, Vegas lost Shea Theodore for Team Canada. He's not starting with them. We know the Matthew Tkachuk injury looks like a groin. Charlie McAvoy shows up in the room yesterday with the sling on. He's not going to be playing anytime soon. This tournament had a body count, and it made for an even better experience for fans that players said, we're going at this like it's Stanley Cup Game 7 all the way.
Okay, you raised something just before I let you go. Cahal Kelly gives us the count this morning in his column, 355 days until the tournament begins in Milano Cortina. Olympics and the NHL returning. I know, there you go. That's the kind of stat you love. The NHL returning for the first time to the Olympics since Sochi in 2014. Do we have a sense of the favorites, what it's going to be like in 355 days?
I mean, the wild card is, of course, Russia. If Russia's in, then there's another team in the mixture. It doesn't look like Russia or Belarus is going to be going to the next Olympics. But listen, it's going to be Canada and the United States. It's going to be neck and neck again. Like we've talked so long, the future of international hockey is no longer Canada versus Russia. It's Canada versus USA. It's always been that way on the women's side, and now it's that way on the men's side. This is like, look, that's a one-shot game last night. This is a coin flip. This is a pick'em. It's going to be Canada and USA favored in Italy next year for sure.
Okay. Special to have you back, Jeff. Thank you so much.